sí, sí, sí. Sí, 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 sí.
Vamos a cerrar aquí el paso. Tranquilo, tranquilo. Entonces, Jonathan, ¿le puede ayudar a Alejo trayendo a cerrar aquí? Que todo el mundo la parte de abajo. Ya, ¿cuánto nos demoraría? Yo estoy aquí en Congreso en Colombia. Nos demoramos una hora, 20 minutos. Excelente, muy bien. Estoy bien. Muchas gracias por la colaboración. Juan, Juan, Menitaba. Juan, Juan Esteban, Juan, Jorge, ¿me necesita?
No,
Me marcó.
sí, cuando esto se llene, me dices para mandar a la gente para abajo.
Así vamos a cerrar acá, los dos. ¿Cómo
No,
quedamos?
arriba está abierto.
Pues lo vamos a dejar abierto.
Sí,
Habíamos quedado que no, bueno, dígame
dijeron que no.
pues de que vamos a la reunión que cerráramos acá. Ah, bueno. Venga, Juan.
Sí, sí.
Simón, salga al aire. Mételo así mismo, allá. Es que, viejo, que ayer quedamos que no, pero ve, mejor. Bien pega por acá, no allá. Alejo, ¿sabes qué vamos a hacer? Que aquí sí no se pueden sentar. Ponemos, sí, porque aquí van a estar. ¿Sabes que le ponemos una cinta? Hola, ¿cómo están? ¿Cierto? O la marina tenemos ahí. O vea, ¿qué le parece? Con eso mismo, no aquí, no, y ya.
Alejandro, pregunto, ¿hay más cables HDMI para acá para salados?
Good morning, everybody. How are you? Oh, I'm glad. Guys, I'm gonna ask everybody to please take out your QR codes when you registered. My two friends, which is Martica and Juan Carlos, are helping us scan your QR codes for attendance purposes. Okay, and this will also help us later on in our concurrent sessions. So start scrolling on your phone, finding your QR, and once they pass, they'll just scan it in and you're ready to go, okay? We'll start in a couple minutes. Thank you guys for your attention. Have a good one. to those who are joining us online. We will be starting in 5 minutes, so maybe you want to get a little cup of coffee before we start our session for those who are watching us from our online platform. For those of us here, we're still waiting for our QR codes to get scanned, and we'll be also starting in 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Tu cosa uno más cerquita, allá abajo, es como la solución que hay. Después se lo tumbó la cámara, weón. Mira. Si no es por el parasol, se jode el ELT, weón. Listo, mira el plano acá.
Sí, está súper bien. Listo. Ellos van a apagar luces. ¿Cambia algo? ¿Tener algún problema?
Dame.
Van a cambiar luces para que se vea eso. Se van a apagar. No todas, pero sí las del escenario.
Ah, no, pero si ahí ya se ve, bájalo abajo y pon en otra cámara, por favor.
No es que lo vea la gente de acá.
No, cambia algo. Pues, o sea, ahí como
No
es.
tienes problema
O sea,
con eso si la pueden apagar.
no, ahí la pueden apagar porque igual se va a ver. O sea, ¿sí me entiende?
No.
Si la apagan, igual esto se ve.
Pero tú no tienes problema.
No.
Listo.
Esta amarilla. Ah, pues que tiene la... Está desaprendida. Yo la bajo, yo la apagaría. Para si te da leer mejor eso.
network of binational centers in Colombia and your host, Centro Colombo Americano de Medellín, it's my great pleasure to welcome you all to our National ELT Conference 2025 Innovative Language Education for a Connected World. We are thrilled to have you here, gathered as a community of passionate educators who are shaping the future of teaching in Colombia and beyond. And those of you who are joining us online, we are giving you a very warm welcome as well, especially because you are an essential part of this experience. We're so glad that thanks to technology, we're able to connect and share knowledge across distance, making this truly a conference without borders. As teachers, we know that education is a life journey. There's spaces like this conference, but they're not only to learn new techniques, but it's also to connect with each other so that we may be able to exchange ideas and find inspiration to continue our incredible work that we do every single day in our classrooms. This event has been carefully designed to give the opportunity to discover innovative approaches to language education, experience and best practices that you can share with your peers, learn from colleagues working in different scenarios and cities across the country, and of course, to strengthen our networks that will continue to support us in our professional growth. We also want to take a moment to thank the U.S. Embassy, the Regional English Language Office in Panama, and the Language Fellows, currently based in Colombia, and of course, our educational co-workers and the editorial houses and international sponsors, National Geographic Learning, Macmillan Education, Pearson, Cambridge University, Oxford University Press, Education USA, GIMSO, Class EdTech Learning, ETS, and LIR Education. These are supporting our event today. Their collaboration makes it possible for us to bring together so many voices, ideas, and resources under one roof. And of course, a special thanks goes to all of our 9 binational centers in Colombia who have worked hand in hand to organize this conference and to create a space where we can learn from each other and grow together. To officially begin this important event, we are honored to hear from our leaders who have worked tirelessly to strengthen English language education in our country. Their vision and support have made this conference possible. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Michael Cooper, Director General del Centro Colombo Americano Medellín, who will share some of the opening words with us.
Thank you, Sandra. Good morning and welcome to Medellín. I really don't have anything to say since Sandra said everything that I was planning on saying this morning. So I will repeat some of the things. First of all, when I was going over my notes this morning, I had this block. And instead of saying the ELT conference, I kept saying the BLT conference, the bacon, lettuce, and tomato conference. So I said I'm going to say it out loud because I might make that mistake when I'm talking. But welcome to the National English Language Teachers Conference. I believe it's the 3rd time that we've done that at a national level. Before, the Colombos would have their own ELT conferences in their own cities. Some Colombos shared, like in the Eje Cafetero. Many times they put themselves together to offer the conferences. But this is the 3rd time, under the guidance of the U.S. Embassy, that we have been able to do a national conference. The first one, I believe, was in Cali, which we have the old, retired, she doesn't look that old, director with us, Joellen. And I believe that was right after the pandemic, and we did it online. So that was an online effort put together by all of the BNCs. The next was in Bogota, again with all of the BNCs working, and Bogota headed it up, and we now are heading up this one this year. As special thanks to many people. Thanks to all of the Columbos and their academic directors for working very hard on this conference that you will be spending over the next 2 days. Especially my academic department, which has been in charge, and all of my support team here, in charge of organizing the logistics of this conference for all of you. Special thanks to the U.S. Embassy from the English language program there that works in bilingual education. All of you, or most of you, probably know Gloria, who has been there for several years. Gloria, I won't say much more. We also have Jennifer, who's new to the embassy the last couple years. We have a couple new Americans who are now part of the embassy or part of the English language development. Danielle Gedahan, which is the public diplomacy officer, who has just been recently, like a couple months, I believe, in Colombia. We're very happy to have him here. And also Kristen Brady, who is our new relo in Panama, stationed in Panama. And a month? 2 months. 2 months she's been here. So please welcome both of them to Colombia, to the networks of the binational centers, and we welcome all of you to enjoy the next 2 days and learn a lot. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cooper, for those inspiring words. Next, we are delighted to welcome Mr. Daniel Gedahan, Assistant Cultural Affairs Officers from the U.S. Embassy in Colombia, who will also give us some welcome remarks.
Good morning. Well, Michael took most of my words, so now I'll try to be even more brief now. It's really a pleasure to be here with all of you this morning, and congratulations. I learned this morning that this was only the third ELT, and from the organization of it, I would have thought you'd been doing this for decades, so congratulations to all of you for the coordination. As was mentioned, my name is Daniel Gedahan. I am Public Diplomacy Officer at the Embassy in Bogota, and so I'm here in representation of the Embassy on behalf of our leadership there, thanking you for your work together with us on English language programming. As you know, it's a cornerstone of the U.S. Department of State's mission and of our embassy in Bogota. The English language programming aligns with our foreign policy goals and strengthens the bonds between our nations. And around the world, the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs has implemented a number of diverse English language programs that you're familiar with that are tailored to the unique needs and priorities of each country. In Colombia, we work closely with partners, including all of the Colombos, to develop these initiatives to enhance both English language learning and teaching, which I think is important to mention. And these are designed not only to improve English proficiency, but also empower individuals and communities through education and cultural exchange. One thing that's really important about the way that we view English teaching is that there's a cultural and a leadership component to it that sets us apart from other English language programs. And the impact of these efforts is clear. Through programs that you're familiar with, hopefully, such as Access, MLK, Open, CHOP, TEA, and many others, we have directly benefited more than 5,300 future leaders across Colombia. These learners are supported by the 9 binational centers in 22 different locations, and they created ripple effects that benefit their communities. Just last year, our English language fellow in Colombia led professional development workshops to reach over 2,000 English teachers. And just a few weeks ago, our current English language fellows, or we call them ELFs, as a positive nickname, Laura Young and Bridget Green, who you'll hear from later today, conducted workshops that benefited more than 250 public school teachers, 100 high school students, and 30 Fulbright English teaching assistants who are also now working around the country and you may engage with. These workshops focus on community building, classroom management, and innovative ELT strategies, equipping educators with tools to enhance their teaching practices and inspire their students. So as I say, we feel that we bring much more than just the grammar, but actually innovative ideas and a community focus. This year, the embassy and our country will celebrate 250 years of independence. And so I thought I would share a note from one of our earliest presidents, John Quincy Adams. He said, "If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader." And today, each of you embodies those words. By participating in this ELT event, you're demonstrating leadership by bridging communication and cultural gaps and setting an example for others to follow. So with all that said, I really now want to echo Michael's thanks and express my gratitude to all of you. First to the teachers for your willingness to share your best practices and for recognizing that English language instruction goes beyond grammar, as I mentioned. You understand that English is a powerful tool for conveying meaningful messages and achieving specific goals. To our allies in the ELT field, we depend heavily on the Colombos, but there are many others. The Secretaries of Education, ASOCOPI, and other organizations that are represented here today. Your dedication to bilingualism in Colombia is also making a lasting impact. To our hosts, to Michael Cooper, Claudia Villa, thank you so much for your leadership, and I'd like to take a moment to give them some applause for it's a lot of work, I can see, and it takes leadership to step up and do this on behalf of the whole network. So thank you, Michael and Claudia, for your leadership. And to the academic directors that Michael mentioned, we had a chance to meet with them over the last 2 days, and seeing how they view English language programming and work with all of you to convey that through the classrooms is really inspiring to us. So I'd like to recognize them by name: Joan Omedo, Martha Orobio, John Arias, Alejandro Ortega, Dagoberto Castillo, Tulio Ospina, Gaetun Osorio, and Armando Villa, at all of our different sites. Thank you for taking the time to be with us this week and encouraging your teachers also to participate. And I'd also like to thank my team, Jennifer Lomana and Gloria Morales. I've been here, as Michael said, very, very briefly so far in Colombia and have depended heavily on them. And seeing how they've worked with all of you is also really encouraging to me. So thank you, both of you, for your work. And also to Kristen, our new Regional English Language Officer that you'll hear from soon. Thank you for coming down to join us and be part of this exciting event today. So thank you all very much. I look forward to hearing more about the ideas and collaborations that come out of this event. And I'm very privileged to be here with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Griffin, for your contributions. Finally, we are pleased to hear from Ms. Claudia Villa, I'm so sorry, Academic Director at the Center Colombo-Americano Medellin, who has been at the heart of the planning of this event. And thanks to her, it's been possible.
Okay, good morning. I think I have to say the same thing. I mean, Mr. Cooper and Daniel took many of my ideas for this morning. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for the ones who are attending the event in person and the ones who are following us online. And I just want to say that this event has been possible because of the work that we have done together. I'm not here representing only Colombo Medellin, the academic director of the Colombo Medellin. I'm here as part of a network of academic directors who have been working hard the last year. We have been meeting every month to do follow-up about connections and ideas, themes, sponsors. Many things have been happening before being here present for this event. So thank you to all my colleagues and also to the many teams behind this. And I have to mention Colombo Americano Medellin, the academic staff, the communications staff, general services, everyone has been working hard to make it as successful as possible. So getting together, I just want to say that also thank you to our sponsors in the U.S. Embassy for the great support we always receive from them, Gloria, Jennifer, and all the team there with us in all these meetings. And I just want to say that getting together It's very important and it's a great opportunity to meet friends, colleagues, to share our pedagogical practices, to learn with and from others. And we as language teachers need to explore and apply and adapt educational trends and keep well informed to transform language teaching into a meaningful experience. Nowadays, Colombia is in need of many citizens with good level of English, and that is an opportunity also for us as binational centers to preserve our role in this country. So, however, we need to keep, we need to keep our English programs up to date, and that's why we are here, because we need to get informed about new trends in education, new strategies, new ways of doing things, and how to keep people believing in what we do in our centers. So we will have the opportunity of having those academic conversations with teachers and specialists who I believe studied as or still are teachers. So I'm sure many of our presenters, they're professors, they're teachers, and they're here to share that experience with us. We will have to, this world seems more and more connected, and citizens are as well. So in this event, we will analyze how those world tendencies are impacting language teaching and how we can keep improving what we do. So thank you all, and let's take an advantage of getting together and growing together this day and a half. So enjoy the conference, take advantage of all sessions, and meet friends and colleagues from other binational centers who are here, Colombo, Cali, Bogota. We have delegations from other countries, from other binational centers here in Medellin, and thank you for that effort from our binational centers. So enjoy the rest of the conference and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia, for those words of dedication that you have put in to bring the conference to life. All right, we're very grateful to all of our speakers for encouraging words and their leadership as we begin these 2 exciting days. Now, as we move forward, whether you are here in person or you're connected online, we encourage you to participate as much and actively as possible. Ask questions, share ideas, and connect with each other. The conference is not just about listening. It's about engaging, inspiring, and building stronger teaching community together. Now, let's take a moment to walk through our agendas. Today, we are going to begin this morning with 2 plenary sessions at 8:45-ish, because we're a little bit behind, taking place simultaneously in Theater 1 and 2, and then at 9:45-ish. I'm going to be very ish today. We will continue with an additional 2 plenaries in these same venues. After that, we're going to enjoy a delicious coffee break at 10:30-ish. Remember, my panel 1 on social emotional language will be continued at 11. At 12 noon, we will be moving out to our first round of concurrent sessions, the ones that you have registered previously. And for those attending in person, please make sure you have your QR code ready to show at the entrances. For those who are with us online, you do not need this. We will be on break for lunch, 12:45, and then we'll come back for our second concurrent sessions at 2:15, and that will be followed by our 3:15, which is our third set. A coffee break will be scheduled at 4, and we will gather again at 4:15 for our third plenary. Finally, we will close the day with our cultural event and reception from 5 to 7:30. Tomorrow, Saturday, we will begin at 8:30 with our 4th plenary, and it will be followed by our second panel at 9:30, titled The Changing Role of the English Teacher in the AI-Enhanced Classroom. We will take a coffee break at 10:30 and continue with our 4th and final set of concurrent sessions at 11:30. The event will officially conclude at 12 noon. So, with further ado, let's embark on this exciting journey together. Thank you very much.
first plenary, I would invite Dagoberto Castillo, who's going to introduce our presenter, first presenter here at Theater 1 from thanks to Nat Geo Learning. So Dagoberto is going to introduce Jair Félix, who's here with us this morning.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this first plenary of a National ELT Conference in Medellin 2025. We are very glad to have you here as we continue sharing ideas and experiences that enrich our teaching practices. It is my pleasure to introduce our presenter, Jair Félix, who is the head of the academic services at National Geographic Learning in Latin America. He has a BA in TEFL from the Universidad Autónoma de Sinaloa in Mexico and a postgraduate degree on teachers development from the College of St. Mark and St. John, Plymouth, UK. Jair has been involved in language teaching and teacher training for over 30 years and has conducted workshops on various topics. Jair also holds a diploma in teaching English for specific purposes and a tutoring certificate from the British Council. Today, he will be leading a session on mastering multiple literacies in ELT. Please join me in giving him a warm welcome to the session.
Thank you very much. And hello everyone, good morning. Can you hear me loud and clear? Yep. Lovely, fantastic. So, as you heard before, my name is Jair. I work for National Geographic Learning as the head of the Academic Services Department. I've been working for this amazing organization for almost 21 years now. I'm only 2 weeks short for my 21st anniversary at National Geographic Learning. So, but as Claudia very well stated before, I'm first and foremost a language teacher. I'm a language teacher by heart. I'm a language teacher by choice. When I graduated from high school, I had it very clear in my mind that that was going to be my path for professional development, and so I decided to go to college to get my degree in English language teaching. So this is the only thing I know how to do in life, to be honest with you. So bear with me throughout this session, because this is where I put all of my thinking and my feeling and my doing throughout the years. And in the topic that is bringing us together today is, I think, of imperative importance nowadays. We're going to be talking about multiple literacies. Typically, when I'm asked to participate at teacher development events, there's a request for talking about topics that are rather traditional, if you may. How to enhance grammar in the classroom, how to use songs, and how to make the best out of video in the classroom, which are all very much needed and they're great ideas, but I think we're at a time in our professional life in which we really need to start paying attention to those topics that go beyond the everyday traditional practices in the classroom. We all know how to teach grammar, we all know how to teach vocabulary, we've used songs and videos in the classroom on a daily basis, so we have a lot of expertise on that. Why not pay attention to topics that exceed that everyday, rather typical practice in English language teaching, and pay attention to concepts that are not only pertinent to or exclusive to English language teaching, but education in general. And the concepts that I'm going to try and share with you have to do with that. The idea of transforming your classroom with multiple literacies and abilities that we need to help our students, no matter their age, no matter their background, no matter their language level. We need to help them develop further in order for them to reach success in today's world. That's the main aim of our session today. I also would like to enforce the idea of having a discussion rather than a lecture or a presentation. I have a personal thing with lectures. No matter how interesting the topic is, no matter how engaging the lecturer might be, at some point throughout the lecture, I start agreeing to everything he or she says because I go like this. So I start saying yes to everything. I can't help it. Whenever I'm attending a lecture, at some point, I start feeling the urge to doze off and sleep. I would hate for all of you to start going like this throughout my session today. So rather than planning a lecture, what I did was to plan some sort of a conversation on the topic of multiple literacies. I know we're all teachers, and that means that we have a teacher's voice. That means that we can project. And I guess we could go without a microphone at some point. Can you hear me? Yep. I can hear you as well. So whenever I'm asking a question, if you have the answer, if you have anything in particular you would like to share, simply use your teacher's voice and project. And at some point I think I'm going to be doing the same because the mic sounds a bit weird, right? But anyways, for today's session, I decided to go over three main aims, if you may. These are the things that we're going to try and reach by the end of the session. The first one is get a common ground of understanding, if you may, on the concept of multiple literacies. We're going to see what are multiple literacies and why do we need them, if we get to the point of deciding that we do need them. Because it could be the case that at the end of the session, you might very well think, well, this is kind of cool, but no, I'm going to stick to a more traditional methodology and I'm going to keep on working on the grammar and the vocab, and that's about it, right? I'm not planning to give you any sort of secret recipes, but rather raise some awareness on the importance of multiple literacies in today's education. Our second objective is trying to understand why is it that multiple literacies are important in English language classrooms in particular. So we're going to go from the general, which is discussing what multiple literacies are, to the specifics, which is why do they matter in English language teaching and learning. And then last but not least, I'll try and give you some practical ideas on how to implement multiple literacies activities in the classroom. So we're going to go from the general to the specific to actual classroom examples on multiple literacies. Sounds like a plan? Yes. Promise? Cross your hand? Cross your heart? Fantastic, good. So let's begin with what are multiple literacies? And since the concept, it's been, pluralized, the idea of multiple literacies, it's a plural concept. In order to fully understand its meaning, let's take it down to the minimal unit of it. So rather than talking about multiple literacies as a whole, let's talk about the concept of literacy in singular. And my question to you is, what is literacy? How would you define the concept of literacy? Any ideas? To know about something. So you're linking literacy to knowledge. Okay, knowing something is literacy. Thank you. Yes?
Being able to communicate.
Okay, so it's not just knowing, but also communicating something. That's to be literate, if you may. Okay? Any other ideas? Capacity to understand, use, and reuse knowledge. So it's not a one-time thing, it's a continuum, right? Very good. I saw a hand over here. Yes? Making interpretation. Very good. Interpreting information. Very good. Yes?
I'd like to say that at the very core, it's like using the words to represent the world where we live in.
How do you use such words? Through which sort of abilities? This happens. This happens when you're addressing an audience that is pretty much millennials and centennials. I mean, I see some more seasoned teachers in the audience, but most of you are very young, which is fantastic. I'm more of a vintage teacher, but many of you are millennials, and many of you are even centennials, which is fantastic. It's amazing, and it's evidence on how we're changing generations in the profession of ELT, which is amazing. If I had asked this to a room of Generation X teachers, for example, the answer I would have got for the question of what is literacy would be very simple, and that was the ability to read and write. That's to be literate, the ability to read and write, right? But since you guys are from a new era, you've stolen my thunder, if you know what I mean, because that was what I was gonna try and present to you, how this idea of literacy, not just being the ability to read and write, is pretty much reshaping the way in which education is presented and approached nowadays. So the ability to read and write. Let's go to that very basic and rather traditional perception of the concept of literacy. Why do we read? What is it that we approach? Why is it that we approach reading, no matter through which means? Because in the past, reading would imply a printed piece of text. Nowadays, we can read through screens, and we read many more things than just text. We read images as well, for example. We communicate through memes and stickers and GIFs and emojis, right? And many of them don't even have a word, and yet we get the message. But the question is, why do we read? No matter through which means, why is it that we read? What is it that we look for when we read? To communicate, very good. To build connections, fantastic. To understand the world, very good. Why do we read? To access knowledge, to get information, very good, fantastic. We read to find out information or learn about something. That's pretty much the core, the main reason we read, we access reading is because we want to know. We want to learn, we want to find out information, and then why do we write? Again, not just in the typical mechanical traditional sense of writing, but include texting and include even podcasting, if you think of that as a means of communication that involves language production, right? So why do we write? To convey ideas, fantastic. To transmit knowledge, very good. Sharing, transmitting, conveying, communicating. Very good, fantastic. We share and communicate our own views or ideas through production of language, right? Very good. Now, in today's world, in the world in which we're developing and our students are developing, how do we find out information? What is it that we do in order to find out information nowadays? Yes? Artificial intelligence. So we have a question, we go to ChatGPT and we get it. We get it sorted out. Very good. Any other ideas? You Google it. Very good. You Google it. So we're now using it as a verb. Google for this, right? Originally it was a noun, but now it's a verb. I'm Googling for. Very good. Anything else? Social media, very good. At the top, it's what you guys have already stated. We search for something online, but perhaps when we want to extract information, we don't go for a text, but we do an infographic, for example, right? Or we watch a video. I don't need to read a full book on how to bake cakes. I can watch a YouTube tutorial in 5 or a TikTok on 5 minutes, and then I've gathered the knowledge that I was looking for. We use AI, or we look at photos and diagrams, etc., right? This is the new kind of reading, if you may, that your students are fully immersed in. Would you agree? What about writing? How do we communicate our ideas nowadays? With text, okay? And by texting, we mean using a smartphone or any sort of an electronic device to transmit messages. Very good. Memes, visual input, very good. We communicate through visual input a lot. Any other ideas? Podcasts, using voice notes, for example, voice messages as well. Very good. But we also create presentations. We take and share photos. Sometimes we don't even need to text anything. We simply send a photo, right? And the full message is conveyed. We produce diagrams, cartoons, or videos. We design infographics. We make podcasts or voice notes. This is the new way of communicating for many of our students nowadays, right? This is how everyone's communicating in today's world. And they're not isolated actions. They're completely intertwined, and they're happening all the time because we're teaching a generation of multitaskers. They can read an infographic and at the same time make a voice note altogether and look for something online altogether, right? This is how the world is moving forward as we speak. The question is, how much of these is a reality in our classrooms on a daily basis? How much of our time in classrooms is invested on infographics or photos and diagrams to extract information, or creating presentations as a project for students to use English effectively, or designing infographics, etc., etc. What I've detected, and I'm not saying it's your particular case because I've never visited your classrooms, but what I've detected by visiting dozens of schools throughout Latin America is that there is a gap in between the way in which we keep on teaching English, which by the way is the most globally used language in the world. All of these activities that we see here happen, or should happen, or could happen massively in English. Because English is the lingua franca of our times, right? So I would assume that just because of that, much of this is a constant reality in classrooms everywhere. And the truth is, it isn't, right? And many teachers, again, I'm not saying it's your case, but many teachers still come to class and they go, "Good morning, class. Open your book on page number 5. I'm gonna play the audio, you're gonna read along, and then you answer questions." Sounds familiar? The question is, how is that, and that exclusively helping develop any of these abilities that we have here? And again, it's just food for thought, right? But that's the reality of the world in which we live in. There's a very interesting research by Silver and Blue, which by the way, I'll be sharing with you all at the end of the session, that states that in today's information-rich and globally connected world, the concept of literacy has evolved, recognizing that students engage with information in many different forms, navigate complex social situations, and form part of a global community. Because of this, students need to be able to make meaning and think critically about information in different forms, from multiple sources and in a variety of contexts. Today's students need to develop more than just reading and writing skills. They need multiple literacies. What do you think of this? Do you agree? If you agree, raise your hand. Thank you. If you don't, hopefully by the end of the session, you'll raise your hand as well, right? But then this is the case for multiple literacies. understanding that the reality of our students' world involves all of this, we need to act in consequence, if you may. We need to provide students with new ways of decoding meaning and developing language other than the traditional reading and writing and role-playing conversations formats that we've used for ages. I'm not saying that you shouldn't concentrate on teaching reading and writing skills. They're essential. They're the basis for further development. What I'm saying is that they're not simply enough in the traditional aspect that they've been taught for decades, if not centuries, right? So don't take this the wrong way. I'm not saying that we should stop practicing reading and writing in English and we should stop practicing, pronunciation and conversational strategies in the classroom. No, they're the core of our profession. That's what makes English language teaching and learning fun, if you may. But on top of that, we need to enrich our students' practice with multiple literacies activities in order for them to get fully ready to use English in the real world. Because in the real world, they're not going to be asked to listen and follow along from the page of a book. In the real world, they're going to be asked to do this in English. Do you agree? Absolutely. So, what different students do students need? You might ask yourselves now. Okay, so what are the skills that are going to help them cover that spectrum that was presented before? And in order to answer this question, or I should say, there's no way to have one particular answer to this question. It all depends on the type of students you have, the potential use they're going to be giving to English in the present and in the future, your own teaching styles, etc., etc. So rather than providing you with an answer to this question, what I decided to do was to give you more questions. That is, food for thought. At the moment of planning for multiple literacies, I think that teachers should ask these themselves. What skills do students need to thrive in their lives now? And when you think of this, you might get some surprises. You might get answers, or you can ask your students very openly, what are the skills, what type of language is it that you need in order to thrive in your current life, in your current context? I did it with my own students, and I got answers that span from, I need English because I'm traveling to the US, to I need Roblox English because I'm really good at it, but I struggle communicating with players from other countries because I don't know enough English. And then that got me off guard because I needed to ask, what is Roblox English? And then I went home and I asked my teen son, would you mind showing me Roblox on your tablet? Because I have no idea what they're talking about. So I needed to pace up to the new reality of students using English in their own context, right? And it's not only what skills they need now, but what skills are students likely to need in the future? What is the career path that they're planning on following? And then you start getting them ready for that, for example, right? And what skills will help students deal with different forms and sources of information? Because typically, in traditional, and take this from a guy, it's a good thing that no one from my company is here. Take this from a guy that makes books for a living. Typically, textbooks from publishing companies, they concentrate on providing a single form and a single structure when it comes to information delivery. We go for the listening, and we go for the video watching as the sources of input, right? And then for production, because that's the way English has been taught traditionally, we go from oral production in conversational sets, and we go for compositions in writing, right? How much of that is included in the current use of language that we saw earlier today? Again, food for thought, right? So what skills will enable them to adapt to different scenarios? How multicultural is your practice? And when I say multicultural, I'm not just talking about, the traditional sense of culture that involves different ethnicities and different geographical locations. But think of different work cultures, like the different cultures that you see within a company or within an academic institution. The concept of culture has been misunderstood by many. And we think of cultures and we immediately think of ethnicities and different geographical locations in the world. But culture is whatever whatever human beings have been able to produce in order to aid their development. So we can talk about work cultures or academic cultures, professional cultures, etc., etc. What skills will enable our students to adapt to different scenarios, to be multicultural in that sense, and thrive in the wider world? What literacies align best with the curricular syllabi being followed? Because we cannot lose perspective on that as well. We work for institutions and they have framed programs and framed syllabi that we need to cover. How further can we go within the curricular syllabi we need to follow when triggering multiple literacies? What literacies fit best with the content being taught? Because maybe you're not a language teacher, but maybe you're teaching science in English, or geography in English, or math in English. So how is that important as well? And after analyzing those questions and the different scenarios that your students could potentially thrive in the world, we at National Geographic Learning ended up creating 5 main buckets, if you may, of multiple literacies. 5 key literacies that we think are needed by students nowadays. The first one includes the need for developing skills to become confident and effective readers and writers. So we went for let's keep reading and writing included. Thank you, Hina. Let's talk about the traditional aspect of language teaching and learning by means of incorporating or enhancing, enforcing reading and writing practices in the classroom, right? So we kept reading and writing as part of the multiple literacies spectrum, if you may. The second one had to do with developing abilities not just to read and write, but understand and interpret meaning that it's communicated in images and express their own ideas in visual form. It's not just decoding meaning from visual input, but it's also having the capacity of expressing thoughts and ideas by means of visual input as well, right? That's the second one. The third one is allowing for students to develop abilities to make sense of the vast quantities of information they encounter daily through a variety of different media forms. How can they decide whether the information they're getting from Google or the video they got from in WhatsApp is true, is accurate, is real, and is of importance for them, right? And we also included abilities to understand and respond with empathy and compassion to their own thoughts and emotions, as well as those of others. And I think that in Colombia, this is of extreme importance because of how social and emotional learning has been enforced in educational programs locally. So this is the ability to deal with emotions and feelings within the learning process. And then last but not least, the ability to develop their knowledge and understanding of the world as they learn and practice English. And the role they play, each of our students play in it as a global citizen. So the concept of global citizenship plays a role as well. Those are the 5 key buckets of literacies, if you may, that we've concluded on in ways for allowing students to develop further in their English language learning process. And this is how we visually represent them. Okay? So the first one, oh, I love how you're all taking photos of it. You're more than welcome to do that. But at the end, I'll give you my email address. And if you want to get a full copy of the presentation, you simply email me and I'll send a link for you to download it. Okay? But keep on taking notes and photos. The first one is textual literacy. Remember? The one that deals with reading and writing, we call it textual literacy. The second one is visual literacy, the one that deals with decoding meaning from visual input and having the possibility of communicating using visuals as well. That's visual literacy. The third one is media literacy, the ability to make sense of the vast quantities of information we encounter daily through a variety of different media forms. That's media literacy. Social literacy, feelings and emotions in the path for learning. And finally, global literacy, the ability to understand the world as we learn and practice the most globally used language in the world, which is English, right? Very good. Up to here, any questions or comments? Sir?
So do all literacies work like an input and output?
Completely, absolutely. Yeah, it's not just the ability, think of textual, for example. You have the input in the reading and the output in the writing. But then you go to visual and you have the input in the visuals that you use for decoding meaning, and then the output in the visuals that you use for expressing yourself. And the same applies to the rest. It's a two-way road of input and output, receiving and producing. Thank you. Yes. Any other question? So far, so good? Promise again? Crossing your heart? Fantastic. Good. So, how do they look in practice? What does multiple literacies development look like in practice? And again, we're going to be analyzing examples for the 5. Examples span from activities that are geared towards teens or young adults or children in order to provide you with a full scope of examples with multiple literacies. But keep in mind that the concept of multiple literacies and the need for developing them further is applicable to all age ranges and all language levels, right? It's not just, oh, this is just for kids or this is just for adults. No, it crosses through the full education spectrum, right? And let's begin with visual literacy. Let's begin with the ability to understand, interpret, and evaluate the meaning of visual content and to express our own ideas in visual form. For language teachers in particular, visual literacy has been a constant forever. How many of you, when teaching vocabulary, for example, how many of you have used a flashcard or a poster or an image in order to convey meaning in class? That is visual literacy. Now, that would be pretty much using it for presenting the language to students. What can we do in order to use that visual input in order to challenge students to produce language that's been triggered by that visual input? And that takes me back to your question. We typically do the reception part. We present images in order to provide students with understanding on vocabulary most of the times. But how can we use images in order to trigger language production, right? And I'll give you an example of this. Take a look at this image here. Do you know what that is? It's a restaurant. Do you see any particular characteristic or something that is unusual, if you may, at this restaurant? Yes. It's a conveyor belt, very good, and it's carrying food, exactly. So all dishes are there, and then you simply take a look at it and you grab whatever you want to eat. Have you ever been to a restaurant like this? Have you heard of those? Yes, very good. Are there any restaurants like this in your cities? No? Not that you're aware of? Okay, very good. Would you like to eat in this place? Ah, this is pure magic, exactly. Some of you are saying no, some of you are saying yes. Why no? Who said no? What? It's overwhelming. So you'd rather have your specific option. I don't want to see anything else. Just bring me what I have thought of having, and that's about it. Very good, fantastic. And then you said we were like this. Right. Well, there's supposed to be a policy on whatever you grab, you keep. In reality, I've seen it with my own eyes. It's not always like that. I've seen people grabbing a dish and even smelling it and then putting it back on the bill. But in the actual regulation forbids that, right? But that's a really good point. Any other reason why this is not such a great idea? What's that again? Right. Oh, so, right. Well, this one it does include seafood because it's an Asian restaurant. But you could go to this type of restaurants with chicken or barbecues or whatever, right? But then for that particular reason, you wouldn't like to eat at this place in particular. Very good. For those of you who said, yes, I love to eat at a place like that, why is it that you would like to eat at a place like this? To live the experience, very good. I'm going to try it for the first time, very good. I want to live that experience, yes? It's not conventional, very good. So I wanna try it out, very good. It's fast. You don't have to wait for, the food to be prepared and served and brought to your table. It's right there. You grab it, you eat it, you're good to go. Very good. Sir?
Yeah, I can decide what you want to eat.
So rather than taking a look at a menu with images that don't always represent the actual dish, you see the dish right there live, and then you make up your mind and you make decisions. Very good. Fantastic. Now, those of you who have decided that you would like to eat at a place like this, would you consider, the perspective of others? Would you say, I really like to live this experience. I would really like to live this experience, but at the same time, maybe my partner here who's saying that he or she wouldn't has a point. So I'm going to reconsider, if you know what I mean, right? And that, what we're doing here is involving different literacies at the same time. The discussion was triggered by visual input. It's visual literacy. But we're also including social literacy as we're talking about our very own preferences, our very own emotions. And if we take one step further, we're now considering other people's feelings and perspectives, which is again, social literacy in practice, right? And it was all triggered by an impactful image. And I decided to give you this example because I don't want you to think that teaching multiple literacies or triggering multiple literacies in the classroom would deviate from your regular content on the regular programs you use or the regular images or text that you present to students in class. It's just tweaking it a bit, right? This is the photo that opens up a unit in a book. You could use whatever the photo, whatever the context, in order to set up a discussion like the one we had. And in that way, you're promoting visual literacy at its best. Questions or comments on this? All clear? At break, we're going to go look for a restaurant like this and live the experience, right? Very good. Now, textual literacy. In textual literacy, it's not only about the ability to read and write. It's not just simply, getting to the section in the unit of your book that includes the reading, and then having students go through the reading and answer the questions. It's going further in the analysis of the context of the situation of the message that it's being conveyed in the reading. One particular way to promote textual literacy is identifying the author's purpose. That is a practice that is not very typical in classrooms, but that promote critical thinking and further reading in a very strong way. This is the reading of this is the story of an Italian retired teacher. His name's Antonio Lacava. And Antonio decided to invest his retirement money and his time on creating a traveling library truck that would visit small villages throughout Italy in order to promote the pleasure of reading in kids. And he particularly visited those villages that were up in mountains or very far away from main cities that didn't really have any other chance for children to enjoy the pleasure of reading. Okay? So this is his story. We would go through it, we would take a look at the images, we would do very typical activities. I would even warm up my students on the context of the reading by asking them questions like, what are some reasons that people write? Because we're working on the author's purpose. We're trying to identify the author's purpose. And I would get answers like this. People write for sharing information, for helping people understand the opinions, feelings, and experiences of others, to entertain, to inspire, to persuade, etc., etc. Then we would go over the story, which we won't because of time, but there's the full story here. It's a very cool story. And then I would challenge my students, after they've answered the questions from the book, what I call the copy-paste questions that textbooks typically include, in which they can literally, they can just simply copy the answer from the body of the text into the questionnaire. I would challenge them with activities like this. What is the author's purpose for telling us about Antonio Lacava's library truck and the Whitewood Project? What do you think the author of this text is really trying to convey? What is the reason why he decided to be so explicit and specific on this topic, right? And we would discuss this further, and if I was teaching a class of younger students, or maybe their language level's not that high, I would provide them with questions, with guiding questions or guiding options like this, right? I would say, the author wants readers to know about Antonio's book truck. Is that true or false? And the answer would be, it is true. The author wants readers to drive book trucks. No, that's false. The author wants readers to feel good about this happy story. That is true. Well, you didn't have a chance to go through the reading, but when you actually go through the text, you understand that he's using some sort of language, emotional language, if you may, in order to make you feel good about the story. And the author wants readers to buy books for children. That's false. But what I'm doing here is framing the practice for those students that need such frame and support. For higher levels, I would simply go with a discussion question like this. And in that way, I would promote textual literacy in a way that is not similar to traditional reading and writing activities in the classroom. And I would finish with something like this. An open-ended activity in which they need to finish the sentences. The author wants to inform us about life in small villages. We learn about this when the author says that there are no libraries or bookstores, etc., etc. Right? So it's further analysis of the text that we're promoting here. Questions on textual literacy? Very clear? Fantastic. Now global literacies. Yes, sir. That is a good question, and it all depends on your teaching styles and your students' preferences. In my particular perspective, I would always label it. Even in the examples I showed you, I am telling my students we're practicing textual literacy, we're concentrating on understanding the author's purpose. Because I do want for them to be reflective on that sense and have a much clearer understanding on the purpose of the activity they're going through. If you at some point detected that your students are not very keen on that, then go the opposite. So it all depends on what's your preferred teaching style, which in my case is to be very explicit on the skills that I'm presenting to my students, and what's your students' reaction. And play it by ear. Perhaps you can start by not presenting, not labeling, and if you see that they're a bit lost and they don't seem to get it, try labels, or the opposite, right? But it play it by ear, pretty much, right? Very good. Let's go to global literacy. And I think this is, it's a given when teaching English in the 21st century. English is by far the most globally used language in the world. There are around 2.5 billion users of English in the planet. It was announced only a few months ago that we've reached the mark of 8 billion humans inhabiting planet Earth. And out of those 8 billion, 2.5 have some command in English. And what's even more interesting is that out of those 2.5 billion people that have some command in English, only less than a quarter are native speakers of English. Which means that, and it was also declared that China is the country with the largest English-speaking population. But they're not making a distinction in between native and non-native speakers anymore. They're just saying, where can you find the people with English commands in the planet? The largest number of people with English commands in the planet? And the answer is China. Isn't that crazy? That's the way the world is right now. And so that is the reason why global literacy is so important. And allowing students to get familiar with stories that don't simply represent native speaking countries, but rather, for example, promoting this idea of knowing about Antonio Lacava's story, which by the way, when I was first reading about this, I had a memory of a teacher who did the same here in Colombia around a decade ago. I don't know if you remember that. It was called Biblioburro. And rather than driving a truck, he was, he would put books on a donkey and he would visit villages all over the country. But anyways, the importance of global literacy is imperative nowadays, allowing for students to use English as a way for accessing the world and everything in it. And then, because of time, and because we're having a panel in a few more minutes on social and emotional learning, I'm going to fast forward through this because this is what we're going to be discussing in the panel in 2 minutes. And I'm going to get into media literacy, the last of the literacies. And that has to do with developing critical thinking, having an eye, having an ability to critically engage with multiple forms and sources of media to understand and construct meaning and build a more balanced understanding of key issues. And I typically use this example with teachers to understand the importance of media literacy. One skill that's related, that's pertinent to media literacy, is that of evaluating the effectiveness of the techniques used in media. Let's talk about, for example, ads. This is an ad that you could find anywhere, on social media, on printing, on magazines, etc. What do you see? And I have my students explain me what they see. It's an ad for sneakers, and it's pertinent to different ages, but they're all very active, etc., etc. Then, I would have them go through these questions. What do you think it's trying to sell? Does it make you want to buy the product? Why or why not? And I would make it explicit through a video, which we don't have time to watch right now, but again, I can share all this presentation with you, with the video included, presenting different advertising techniques. Then I go back to my ad and have my students decide whether the technique used in the ad is effective or not. If the ad is, giving them the urge to buy a pair of sneakers now or not, right? That is how you critically engage with media in today's world. And that's the power of media literacy in the classroom. So, to summarize what we've seen today, textual, visual, media, social, and global literacy are at the heart of today's education in general and English language teaching and learning in particular. It is your call now, it's your decision whether to start implementing some of these concepts in your classrooms or not. If you want to know more about multiple literacies, you can access a full report on multiple literacies by scanning this QR code. It's free of charge. It's been put together by different educational agencies and sponsored by National Geographic Learning, and it's on multiple literacies in the English language classroom. If you want to get a copy of the presentation that I used today, drop me a line. It's jair.felix@cengage.com. Talk to me during the breaks and I'll give you my email address. And again, thank you all very much for being here today, for your very insightful participation. And whatever questions, I'll be around the full day. Drop by the National Geographic Learning booth and we can have a conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Jair for sharing his insights on this session. And thank you all for your attention and participation. So we invite you to continue with our program of a National ELT Conference Managing 2025, okay? Enjoy the rest of the sessions.
Okay, we have now two different plenaries. We have one here, which is dealing with the AI impacts and possible solutions by Joel and Simpson. If you have selected the other plenary, which is, let me read it for you. We have a second plenary, which is strengthening ELT practice through RELO resources. RELO meaning Regional English Language Office. This will be guided by Kristen Brady. If you have selected that session, we would like to invite you to go to the basement theater too. If you selected Joellen's presentation, please stay here.
Theater 1. I am really happy to introduce you to Marta Orobio, Academic Director from BNC Cali. She will be in charge of introducing our presenter. Marta.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second plenary session of the day. We are very happy to have you here as we continue sharing ideas and experiences that enrich our teaching practice. It is my pleasure and honor to introduce our next presenter, Joellen Simpson. Joellen has a PhD in linguistics from University of Florida and was the General Director of the Centro Cultural Colombo Americano in Cali from 2004 to 2025. Parallel to her work at the Colombo Americano, she has been a professor in the master's program in the teaching of English as a foreign language at Universidad ICESI since 2014. Her research interests include learning how to write in English as a foreign language, especially how to give feedback to our students, and also academic integrity in a digitalized world. Today, Joellen will be leading a session titled Dealing with AI, Impacts and Possible Solutions. Please join me in giving Joellen a warm welcome.
Thank you, Martha. Good morning, everyone. That was a nice welcome. Thank you. Okay. I have my notes here. Forgive me. So, as Martha said, as a professor, I'm interested in teaching writing. And academic integrity is an important part of writing, and AI is putting into question academic integrity at all sorts of levels, especially in student writing. So the presentation that we're going to see is going to talk about what's happening with AI, how it's impacting us, and some suggestions for us as teachers and as leaders for what we can do in order to maybe counteract some of what's going on. It doesn't advance. Hang on. Technical difficulties. Nope, not. No, it's not just me. Sometimes you're like, yeah, it's not working, and then they take it and like, yeah, it's working just fine. So it's not working. Hang on. So while we're waiting for that to get started, I'm not an expert on AI, but I'm a curious person and I read a lot. So okay. So based on reading that I've done about AI, I've come up with these two general purposes for this topic. First of all, we're going to look at some challenges that we're facing today because of AI and largely, but then also some suggestions as leaders and as teachers. So, what are some of those challenges? Well, people aren't doing critical thinking anymore. Have you seen that? How many of you are fans of AI? How many of you have like accounts with ChatGPT? Yeah? Okay. There is atrophy of the brain muscle. Your brain is like a muscle. And if you don't use it, it atrophies. And that is happening. People are less creative. There are memory problems. Digital amnesia. And this has happened since before AI. Digital amnesia is where you don't remember things that you know that are on your cell phone or easily accessible on internet. We used to remember telephone numbers. How many telephone numbers do you know right now? Your own? Yeah, very few. Your mom. Yeah, exactly. One or two phone numbers. There's attention deficit. You see it all the time. People have their phone and it's just video after video after video, and people don't last for more than a couple of seconds. At the Colombo-Americanos, we all talk about, how do you attract students in a world where students are distracted so easily. Their attention is minimal. And so, how do you catch that attention? The Google effect. Have you heard of the Google effect before? This was a term that was coined in 2011, and it means that if I know I can find it on Google, I'm not going to remember that. I'm not interested in remembering it because I know I can find it on Google. So this has been going on for a while. I recently, like just this last week, read an article about mobile multitasking. You've done this before, right? You're in a meeting, you're in class, you're talking to people, but at the same time you've got your cell phone out. And you're chatting with somebody, yeah? Maybe you're looking at a video. And they've done studies, and that's what this article reports, they've done studies on this. The impact on recall, on memory, is insane. And as a woman, this makes me worried. Women are more susceptible. Women's memory is less than men's memory when they're doing mobile multitasking. So that's scary. It's scary what can happen to us because we're so wrapped up in our digital lives. Okay, some more challenges. Now the 59%, the place that I read it said, this is probably a conservative number, and I would agree with the author that said that. So at least 50%, 59% of your students are using AI to do their homework for them, not just to support them, but to do it for them. They're not learning how to do tasks. They're not learning how to solve problems. They're not understanding the subject matter. Now, when you're teaching English, that's serious. You need people to understand it, otherwise they're not going to be able to learn the language. Definitely students are getting lazier. Do you see that? I see some nods. And we're losing academic integrity. Last year, and this is happening so fast, I mean, ChatGPT has only been around for 2 or 3 years. Well, 2023 is when it became widely accessible. It's 2025, we're not even done with the year. Last year, AI was used to organize ideas. This year, AI is being used to generate our ideas. People are not thinking anymore. There's lower cognition, and people are unable to solve problems. I've got some data for you because you'll be like, she's just talking. There are research studies out there. So a study from MIT. We trust MIT, right? I trust MIT. So they said over 4 months, LLM users consistently underperformed at neural, linguistic, and behavioral levels. These results raise concerns about the long-term educational implications of LLM reliance and underscore the need for deeper inquiry into AI's role in learning. That's scary to me. That's not the only one. Microsoft. I trust Microsoft. They did a study. Higher confidence in generative AI, is associated with less critical thinking. So in other words, if I trust Gen AI, my critical thinking is lower. While higher self-confidence, if I believe in myself, I will have a higher level of critical thinking. More evidence. So there was a group of researchers, and there was like 20 or 30. There was a huge, huge list of authors who worked on this from Great Britain. And they report, bypassing the cognitive effort required for creativity by using ChatGPT could be harmful to the creative process and experience of creative tasks. Now, as was mentioned, I was recently the general director of the Colombo-Americano in Cali. Over these many years, I've done a lot of strategic planning with my team. And for many years, when we would do strategic planning, you would ask questions and people would talk and they would come up with things and they would come up with some really good ideas. In the last year, we did several strategic planning sessions and everybody immediately, ChatGPT, what does ChatGPT have to say about this? And the level, the profundidad, the depth of the responses was minimal. It was superficial. And it was so hard to get people to put their phones down and to think, because now everyone is relying on ChatGPT to think for them. But the result is scary. Am I scaring you yet? Okay. What is the result? We are getting dumber. And I've got more details, I've got more statistics here. Our relationship with information has changed. Now, we're not getting information, we're receiving content. And that content is designed to catch our attention. It's not designed to help us in any way. Let's take a look at the data to say that yes, we are getting dumber. Okay, the PISA results. Now this doesn't include language learning yet, but do you see some trends here? Are you good at reading graphs? There it is. You notice the zoop, they're all going down. They're all going down, okay? This is across the board. This isn't just Colombia. This is in the world. Now, the Flynn effect. Have you ever heard about the Flynn effect? I found this in my readings. Really interesting. So Flynn was a researcher in the 70s and 80s. And in 1984, Flynn published a study that said, since from the 1930s until that time, 1984, intelligence had been steadily increasing. And Flynn suggested that that was because there was better nutrition and better schools. However, okay, Flynn is no longer with us, but people continue to measure intelligence. And guess what they've discovered? The peak happened in the late 90s. And since the late 90s, intelligence levels are going down. In 2012, that downward trend accelerated. And I haven't seen data from the last 2 years, but I assume that since ChatGPT became really widely available, that downward trend has accelerated even more. Scarily, again, as a woman, this frightens me. Women are in a worse position than men in terms of this digital distraction. Women are more wrapped up in digital whatever that makes us dumber than men are. And so, as a woman, I'd like to say, cuidaditas. Let's be careful. Okay, so yeah, the Flynn effect was the going up, and now it's the reverse Flynn effect. We're going down. Okay. So where do we go from here? It's a little scary. As teachers, we have a really important role. Yeah. As teachers, we have a really important role. Let's take a look specifically then at AI, because this presentation is about AI. So this is from an article that I found. So it talks about the benefits and the negative impacts of AI. So, some of the benefits, we know these: personalized learning, it's available, repetition, and for language learning, repetition is super important, interactive, reduced pressure, memory. Those are all good things. And I think we can say, yes, as teachers, we can take advantage of these things. But, we also need to consider the negative effects. There is an over-reliance on AI. Instead of using their brain, students immediately take out their phone and they go for, well, what does ChatGPT or Claude or whoever say about this? Difficulty in critical thinking, and that's my central argument. We are losing our ability to think critically. Accuracy of the information information is questionable, a lack of deep understanding. When you ask the question of AI, it gives you a very superficial response. And well, anyway, lack of deep understanding, decreased human interaction, that's been going on for years, and then demotivation. So these are things that definitely we need to keep in mind as we think about using AI. So why should we use AI? Some teachers, and there are some rabid people out there that says, no cell phones, no computers, let's go back to paper and pen learning. So there are some people who say, yeah, no, none of this in my class, we're gonna, old school, tests on paper, no more computers, nothing like that. But we need to be realistic. So teachers need to learn how to deal with AI. So we need to figure out how we can integrate it in a way that supplements but doesn't supplant. So we don't want AI to replace us. We want it to help us. This is a report from Forbes that came out last year. Percentage of teachers who have integrated AI into their daily teaching practice. So 60% of the teachers are saying, yes, we do. There's a pretty good, 35% that says, no. There's more information in this presentation from that Forbes presentation article. All right, so why do students, why are they interested in AI? Well, they do it because we make it easy for them to. We are making activities or assignments that are easy for them to plug into their AI in order to produce the result. They want to save time. Everybody's into saving time these days. It's got to be fast, it's got to be agile. Students believe that AI is helping them learn. Thank you. And in some cases that could be possible. But I think it needs to be monitored some, curated perhaps. And they feel less stress or pressure with AI. Now there's an interesting video by the CEO of Duolingo, and he says that they used to have, or well they still have, real live teachers for people who pay money, and they can have like private interactions with teachers. And it was, there, and some people did it. But when they launched their AI tutor, that exploded. And they were like, well, why? Why are people interested with the AI tutor but not with our real life tutor? So they asked people, and they said, we don't feel judged. Okay, that's important. So less stress or pressure. So it's really important if we are teachers and our students feel pressured by us, well, that's going to be part of the conversation that we're going to have in the panel after this, the social emotional learning. But so students are interested in AI because they believe that the computer is not going to judge them in their work. Okay, what kinds of things are teachers doing with AI? So a lot of teachers are just afraid. In the previous session, our presenter mentioned the centennial, millennial, Gen X. I think depending on your position on that range of ages would influence your fear or your trepidation about using AI. Generally, the more mature you are, the more reluctant you are to get into this world. But anyway, so there are teachers who are afraid and uncertain. But teachers are using AI to create activities, to design lessons. Some are using AI to give feedback to their students. Some are helping individual students, with personalized learning. So if you have, a group of students where you've got one student that's just not there yet, so AI can help that student get up to the level of the rest of the students in the group. So these are kind of some of the things that I've read about that teachers are using AI for. Now this is from that Forbes article again, 2024. At the end of this, I have a really long reference list, and you can download it. There's a QR code, so you can get some of these references. Interesting reading. So, what are teachers doing with AI? So 51%, well, games, AI-powered games. learning program platforms, 41% automated grading and feedback systems, chatbots for student supports, etc., etc. But there are some concerns. And the biggest concern there, plagiarism, you know, that whole academic integrity thing, reduced human interaction in learning, and we see this. Yesterday on my way here, no, actually it was before coming here, I had lunch at a restaurant with my husband, and we were sitting, chatting, and we were looking at the other people around us on the tables, and everybody was eating with somebody else. There was only one person eating by herself, everybody else was in a group. And I mean, everybody, they were just sitting there with their cell phone in their hands. They weren't talking to the person who was sitting across from them at the table. So I think the reduced human interaction every day, I mean, if your student is more interested in going to the AI tutor instead of coming to you, that's a concern. Data privacy and security, unequal access. We see that here. Not everybody has access to the computer. Not everybody has a data plan on their cell phone. Job displacement for teachers. Let me give you another example. Another article that I read. See, I just read too much. This was based in the United States, a survey of people who studied computer science. And I mean, what has everybody been studying over the last, 10, 20 years? Everybody's like, gotta study computer science, that's where the jobs are. Guess what? Not anymore. AI is replacing those entry-level jobs in computer science. The only jobs available right now are for mid-level and high-level tech. My question is, what happens in 10, 20 years when those people are retiring? If they don't have that bottom line of, entry-level positions, because AI is doing that, who's going to take those middle management jobs when the time comes? 23% automation, thank you, of manual tasks. I don't know why that's a concern. That sounds interesting, actually. Let's talk about academic integrity. So, what are the specific things people are worried about with academic integrity? So using AI to, do your homework for you. You've all received homework that's been done by AI, right? You recognize it. Because it doesn't sound like anybody. It doesn't sound like your student. Utilizing chatbots or voice assistants during exams. Scary. Employing AI-driven translation tools during assessments, copying or sharing AI-generated code or algorithms for coding assessments. Well, that doesn't affect us. But the whole concept of academic integrity with AI is, it's part of what we need to take into consideration. All right, so what do we need to think about? I'm giving you this information to, make your hair stand on end. I think it's important to shock people sometimes, but also, it's not clear-cut. There are examples of teachers who have been sued by students and their parents because, on both sides. A student uses AI to turn in an assignment, the teacher fails the student. Well, what happens? The parent sues the school and the teacher because they failed the kid because the kid used AI. On the other hand, there was a professor, this one down here, Northeastern University, a professor was using AI to give feedback on student essays. And the professor did a very poor job, copy-paste, didn't read, and it, there was language in there that was like from the prompt and things like that. And so the students went to the university and they said, give me my money back. My professor is not working. My professor used AI in order to evaluate my work. So, big news about how AI is impacting on both sides. Whoops, too far. Okay, let's talk a little bit about AI literacy for teachers. What are the kinds of things that we need to take into consideration here? So, ChatGPT literacy or AI literacy, there are benefits, as we've seen. There's speed, we can generate ideas, we can write. there are limitations. The whole concept of bias. Right now, the world is divided. And that bias on both sides is being multiplied by AI. Limited access, teacher and student knowledge. I think for many of us, our students know better how to use AI than we do. So, we need to learn about it so that we can help control and monitor our students. Prompt engineering is huge. I think even you can study like master's programs on prompt engineering now. I know there are specializations on prompt engineering because the better the prompt, obviously the better response. So that's something that we need to understand and recognize, potentially teach. Output evaluation. Most people put in a prompt, copy the text, and they're done with it. They don't read it, they don't evaluate it, they don't monitor it in any way, and that's something that we need to help our students learn how to do. Check for accuracy, check for relevance, check for bias. Using AI for assessment. Okay, so you can use AI to generate assessments. So you can say, my students have to read this text, please give me 5 questions. And so it makes it easier for us. But at the same time, how do we prevent cheating? So it's both sides. We want to use it, we want to take advantage of it because it's, helps us do things faster. But the students are also like, it helps me do things faster too. Like doing the exam or finishing the assignment. The ethics of AI is every art author that talks about AI mentions ethics. It's super important to take into consideration privacy, security, ethical use, and this is related to the academic integrity also. All right, now for those of you here who are teachers, some suggestions. Instead of asking a student to produce a text, you need to ask them to prove their knowledge. So it's not just, write an essay about what you did last weekend. You can ask ChatGPT to write an essay about what you did last weekend. And you turn it in and you're done. Okay, did you actually do that last weekend? Or was that just a completely made up text? One thing that we can do, the second point there, teachers can ask students to work with information that they found. So not just present the information, but say, okay, look for this information, and then we're going to do something with that information. So, bring the information to class, and then do something with it. We need to engage students emotionally and behaviorally. In one of these many articles that I read, a lot of non-native speaking teachers use AI platforms and also things like videos for oral production for their students because they say, my English isn't that good, my pronunciation, whatever, so I'm going to use this video or I'm going to use this AI text, chat, whatever. It's been shown, and these are really recent studies because it's only been the last couple of years, but it's been shown that especially children who receive that artificial input are less emotionally engaged than a teacher who speaks or reads or tells the story himself or herself. So we're going to talk about social emotional learning in the panel, but it's super important to take that into mind that if we use a lot of videos and a lot of AI input, we are also disconnecting ourselves from our students. Question?
Thank you. I'd like to add a personal anecdote I have with these. So I used to play lots of videos, especially for activities such as storytelling or things like that. And I noticed that most people get distracted or they just don't really pay attention to the videos. But when you get engaged into the narratives and you tell the stories firsthand, they really follow your speech and your facial expressions and everything. So I noticed
Thank you. Oop. This one's really loud. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. That's a very good example. Human beings are programmed to read faces. You know, babies are born with the ability to identify eyes and nose and mouth, and they watch your mouth. And that's a great example. So, you know, everybody's looking at a video going, But then when you, the teacher, you get up there and you start moving and you move your face, and then the students are much more engaged. So we need to be careful about that. Teachers need to provide clear guidelines. Everyone goes into their class with certain rules, right? And on the first day of class, you say, look, in this class, you know, respect, and, you know, you've got a list of rules. We need to include rules on AI, and they need to be explicit, because if they're not, then the students will be like, yeah, okay, the teacher didn't say anything, so here's my assignment that ChatGPT did for me. I recently read a PhD thesis, and at the end of the introductory chapter, the author wrote, use of AI. AI was used to help correct with style, grammar, vocabulary. So, I mean, there was a declaration there in the document that said how AI was used. And you see that more and more. It's really important, especially at that level, for people to acknowledge, okay, AI was part of this, and it was used like this. Your students are probably not at that level, but still, you can talk about that. You can say, all right, if you're going to use AI in your assignments, you need to tell me how you're using it, so that you can monitor and make evaluations. Use AI for tasks that do not require critical thinking. Learning a language is all about critical thinking. If you're not thinking critically, you can't learn the language. It just is. And so if you have assignments that require the student to be thinking, you can't let them use AI to do the thinking for them. Okay, another suggestion, train yourself. We gotta learn. This is Google Generative AI for Educators. It's free. I really recommend it, because we gotta know. There's one over there, thank you. Okay, another one, okay. So yeah, check it out. Check it out, you know, do the course, because as educators, AI isn't going anywhere. If anything, it's just gonna get more. Every day there's a new platform, there's a new way to use AI. So we as educators, we have to be trained, because our students are miles ahead of us in many cases. Okay, if you're a leader, because I know there are leaders in this room, some of the things that leaders need to take into consideration: professional development. Every teacher out there is screaming for training. So, I mean, what I just showed you is something that's available online, but as leaders of these Columbos and other organizations, you need to make sure that your teachers are trained, not just cool activities, but like how AI works, things like this, how AI affects us. There's a lot behind using AI that needs to be trained. Need to focus where need is greatest. The whole thing of prompt engineering, assessment, for example, the ethical considerations of AI. AI should be involved in the process, but not the product. We can't prohibit AI. Students are going to use it. There's no way in the world that we can say, no, you're not going to use AI. So we need to give them guidelines on how to use it. And my suggestion that it can be part of the process, but the final product needs to be the student. So if it's written, if it's spoken, if it's a, you know, okay, I'll finish long before that, don't worry. You know, if you have to design a poster, You know, back in my day, you would cut paper out and, you know, you would cut pictures out and you would paste them onto another piece of paper and you would make your poster. How many students still do that? No one, right? Everyone goes to their favorite AI platform and they say, I need a presentation that has this, 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 and that. And then, bam, you've got a presentation. And then what? What am I evaluating? Am I evaluating AI's ability to draw a picture? So the process is important rather than the final product. Teachers and students need to be trained on critical evaluation of AI output, and this is part of the professional development that teachers need to receive, is how can they promote a critical use of AI? So it's not just saying, okay, chat, tell me what this is, but okay, now I read it, I evaluate it, and then I edit it, I modify it, I add things, I take things out. That's an important skill that we all need to learn and improve. And then those frank conversations about academic integrity. This needs to be at all levels. You know, even your A0 student coming in on the first day of class, you need to have this conversation with them about their learning process and the role of AI in that learning process. Okay, so to wrap up, as teachers, we have a really important role. And I think a lot of teachers don't realize that. We get into this field because we're passionate about it. And we go into the classroom and we're like, yeah, and we're fun and exciting and everybody loves their English teacher. But we really do have an important role in our students' lives. And we need to realize that. We need to train ourselves, as I've mentioned several times. Had to check my notes, make sure I'm not skipping anything. We need to train ourselves. We need to find ways to integrate AI that supports but doesn't replace thinking. And for me, thinking is really the thing. I'm interested in people thinking. I want them to, I want this reverse Flynn effect to stop. I want us to start getting smarter again, but I don't see it. And that's where we play a really important role in helping our students become more intelligent. And help our students learn self-confidence. And I think that's the fundamental reason why so many people use AI, because they're not confident in themselves. Rather than thinking, exploring what's going on in their brain, they immediately go to ChatGPT or whoever, and they say, what does this mean? Or how do I do this? Rather than taking a moment and saying, I know how to do this. I can do this. And so I think as teachers, that's a really important part of what we do. It's helping students gain confidence in themselves so that they can go out into the world and do things. And one final comment about things that I've read. I read a study, again, another study, about self-confidence. And there are studies that show that in success in general in the world, the number one characteristic of successful people is self-confidence. So if we're teachers and we're helping our students become self-confident, we are supporting success in our society. And I think we need more of that for all of us in order to continue on in this new life and world of artificial intelligence. I hope this presentation has been insightful, interesting, that you learned something new, and that when you go into your classrooms and you start using or continue using AI, you've got some ideas of how to frame your work with AI. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Joelle. Thank you for a very interesting presentation, and thank you all for your attention. Okay. We invite you to go on a break now, and after that, we're going to be waiting for you here for our first panel session of the day. Okay?
The The coffee break station is in the second floor, and you guys can